Welcome to Lucid Dreaming and the Cube of Space. This week we come to the western face of the cube. The western face of the cube is the world. It's the world we perceive as outside of us or ourselves, specifically what we perceive as outside through our senses. And specifically in the cube of space, it's the third dimension. Can everyone mute themselves, please? All right. So this is on the cube of space, the western face is the number 10 key of the tarot, the major arcana, and it's called the Wheel of Fortune. Now, what you should know about the Wheel of Fortune is it is the intelligence, the living intelligence that rewards all who seek. In the Sephir Yetzirah, our book of formation, it's also called the conciliating intelligence. To conciliate means to reconcile. So what is it that might be reconciled with the Wheel of Fortune? Please unmute yourselves one at a time and share what speaks to you in this week's key. Know that this is the solar plexus in the abdomen in the Western tradition.
All the animals are looking in toward the spirit, towards the center, towards the spirit world, which is different than in the world key where the bull is looking out and the wreath is resting on the lion and the bull going towards formation. Material world.
It's quite a zoo. Lots of animals in this key. Creatures.
I think about the wheel card on the west side, kind of like a hamster going around and around, and like that's how people get stuck on the west side and don't get to the other sides because they're just kind of going around and around and around. It's like they don't. It's like the hamster can't find the door to get out, but you can see once you're outside of that circle, there's a whole world out there. And you know, with opportunities and, you know, but you got to get out of that that wheel.
Yeah.
To that point, if I was to say what this key is reconciling, I would say it's reconciling the within and without, or the center in the circle in this solar symbol of the sun. So we have the aspects that are crossing through center from one end to the other in the wheel itself. And if you overlay the solar symbol there, which you can see it is there, right? We have sort of a reconciliation happening with opposites, you could say, on all sides here.
Absolutely. that is correct, and that is an excellent observation. That's the function of this key, is the reconciliation of all perceived opposites.
So when we were chatting earlier, and Maria was wondering about dreams and what it is really, and basically, I think sometimes we think of dreams as vanity in the sense of not substantial or not real, or
Mm.
but if we consider that it's the opposite experience that we have of our perceived waking life, then it's really just as substantial as the other side of things. It's not less than, and so it's that's part of the reconciliation process, is to as I'm saying this, I'm sort of seeing that that's the case here, that we're reconciling the inner and outer.
Yep. Excellent.
So-called inner and outer. Sorry,
Exactly.
Jesse.
No, that's good though. It's exactly right. The so-called inner and outer, but there does seem to be this perception, right? It's kind of how we process what we call um, the real, or forms or objects in space-time as out there. It's kind of a shared way of perceiving, and way we kind of are taught to perceive until we wake up or are taught to perceive differently. Like there's so many things we could do. For example, we could project our awareness into the figure at the top of this key, or this wheel, the Sphinx here in blue, and imagine that we are this form and being, the top. And through the skillful means of our imagination, we could start to have a completely different experience of how we perceive what we call the world. It's possible.
There are many circles shown on this card. When we move through life, we never go back to the same spot. So we live on a spiral, not a circle. It's the epigenesis of creation that you cannot go back because your mind has changed. Even in the last 10 minutes, your mind has changed. So therefore, you can never be in that spot again. And so we see something circular, we have to realize that it's in motion. And everything about this card is emoting, is in motion and moving.
Interesting.
We have the fixed signs, and yet they're in the clouds.
Right. And so let me, thank you, Mariah. Let me suggest this also. So our subconscious understands the book of wisdom. It understands these figures that the self-conscious mind is like, what's going on here? And these areas, Margot's talking about the fixed signs. This is Leo, this is Scorpio raised, the eagle. The man's head is Aquarius or air, and then the earth sign is Taurus down here. So in space-time, that we live here in our solar system, these areas of intelligence, of vast, vast intelligence, appear to be fixed from our perspective in the skies, right? And again, our subconscious picks up on this. And for the subconscious, these areas of intelligence, they're not astronomically far away. Okay? Like we tend to think, oh, Jupiter's what, 380 something million miles away in space-time. Okay, yes. Yes. In space-time, that's how we measure this distance. Bless you. And this is the key of Jupiter, by the way. However, the being that is Jupiter, the vast intelligence, which is the expansive intelligence, and the great benefactor in our solar system, this intelligence is with us and in us right now. It's not far, far away. If you just open up a little, you can feel that. You can feel that expansiveness from the core of your being. This is an intelligence that in the tarot is called the great benefactor and helps us to find that which we seek. And we all know the saying, that which we seek is seeking us. So remember that the subconscious knows all about what's going on here. And we're trying to get our subconscious mind on board with a little bit more of its wisdom, of this great being that we live within and that is within us. That is us. Who else? What occurs to you in this key?
We're dealing with some pretty prominent symbols, the Anubis, the Sphinx, and the serpent, just around the wheel itself. And the fact that it's called the Wheel of Fortune, we have an element of gambling or chance in it. And also being a wheel is, as Mariah pointed out, we're looking at the cyclical action where we come around in a spiral. But I'm really fascinated by the Anubis. He's the one who would weigh the deceased, the person going into the underworld. He would weigh their heart, and if it was heavier than a feather, the person had to go back, into another incarnation.
Right.
So we have an element of test there, and the Sphinx is associated with the riddle of the Sphinx. So, and the Sphinx is carrying a sword, and of course, that Sphinx was at the entrance to the ancient city of Thebes. And if you couldn't answer the riddle, the Sphinx would kill you. So the way it would apply here is that if you go through a cycle, but you haven't really learned the lesson, where you can't answer the riddle, then you have to go back around again.
Go back around. Right.
Yeah. And then the serpent too, it's going down. The whole thing is rotating counterclockwise. Yes. So in that, some writers say that represents chaos. It's where things are in dissolution, because you can't really reform something, until you return it to its primordial state and then build it up again. So, but that's what I'm seeing with this, is that there's the main symbols are the idea of a wheel of fortune and
Yep.
this process of cyclic activity and coming into a test. So
That's really, really helpful, Michael.
oh, good.
Thank you. I don't mean to cut you off. Are you still going?
No, I'm done. No.
Okay. To Michael's point, let's move over to this picture, because he just really articulated this well. So these are the intelligences of the zodiac that, again, are not far away, right? They're right here with us all the time. They're part of us, and we're part of them. That form and give formation to the whole Western face of this experience of the world. It's kind of enlightening to look at it from this perspective. I'm just going to say this, and I want you to look at it, see what you see, but just what Michael was just saying, the Anubis, right, weighs the heart, and that's worth contemplating. What does that mean if the heart weighs more than a feather? How much light has been brought and filling the heart is one consideration. And we see here, look, there they are, the scales of justice formulate the world. And they come from the self-conscious mind above down to the subconscious, down to the underworld, where we see the figure everyone's afraid of, right? Down here, where everybody's having a good time until they're not. This is P. Diddy's party until the party's over. Sorry, that's a little dark, but anyway. But so, even so, these are real forces in the world, right? These are the real things that we all have to face and go through. And what's here on the other side of the world? Transition. Now, if we've made our contact up here with the Holy Guardian Angel, right? Which is at the self-conscious level. And notice it's tempering the eagle and the lion. Right? Interesting, right? And in some areas, a sphinx is a lion and an eagle and a human crossed also. And this is the higher self at Tiferet, the sun, connecting the moon to the sun on the tree, helping us pass these tests that Michael's talking about. It's also the intelligence that's putting us through the tests. And what's the ultimate test? To be awake and to recognize the self behind the appearance or the experience. This is why we're waking up in our dream. So who else wants to share what they see in the patterns of the world and the other keys around it, if anything speaks to you at all?
I don't see the patterns, but I do just remember a dream that I just had recently that I think I might have forgotten. But the devil card, or whatever we call it, card.
The deceiver, yeah.
I actually remembered telling someone in my dream that it wasn't anyone here, somewhere someone else. I was telling them in my dream that those were his students. I said, this is what you're doing to your students. And I was warning him and saying, don't do that to your students. And I threw the card at him.
This right here?
Yeah. Yeah, I just remember that.
Good. Sounds like you're looking out for someone.
Mm.
Now, so the 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 imperative of life, if it's so that we have to come back and learn the lessons until we learn them, which seems to be the case. That that seems to be the case. And if that is the case, then the better we take things head on, the better for us, right? And the better we know the patterns or the experiences that we're going through, the more self-aware we become of what to expect as far as energies and patterns in the world or in our own experience. So what I mean by that is one thing I mean by that is when you're working with these keys, don't be surprised if these other elements show up. If when we get to the justice key specifically and you're working with that on the cube of space, don't be surprised if if in your inner experience you're confronted with this sort of experience. It's the way consciousness moves through creation. Just like we have wiring in our physical organism and circulatory system, all consciousness moves in certain patterns and ways. This is one way that we can learn to process the patterns that we find ourselves in our inner consciousness. And a big one of the world, this world, the biggest thing to overcome is fear. And what do we have here? We've got justice, and if we have anything going on, we're certainly, what does that invoke? And then we've got the deceiver, the devil. What does that invoke? And then we've got transition or death. What does that invoke? All of these things invoke these patterns of fear. And up here above, the only one, well, the skeleton's all white too. The only one dressed in all white is the Holy Guardian Angel, who's kind of tempering this whole process. So I'm going to reiterate the teaching in the Western tradition is if we put ourselves to the task and just immerse ourselves in it, the teaching is that the Holy Guardian Angel, right here, Michael, the temperance, will see to it that we succeed. If your goal is to wake up in your dreams, like in this course, ask the guardian angel to help. Always ask for help. We always have help. Because, the world's a tricky, it's not the easiest world, right? It's not the easiest place. But we have help, a lot of help. And as we go through and face these things with courage, eventually we start to realize there's nothing but the goodness of the one. That's why this figure above and all the light looks really similar holding the torch here. Is the shadow figure down here below in the subconscious. And notice this is the Western face where we see the deceiver key on the cube. So it's the physical body world, the 3D world, and the subconscious of this world. So this is kind of one of the darker places, right? But this is where we process the materials to be transmuted into gold in alchemy.
Mhm.
All right. We're pressing for time. Does anyone else have anything to say about this?
Yeah, what's that expression? 25% inspiration and 75%, no, the other way around. Perspiration, inspiration, whatever. You know, we do 25% of the work and then, you know, the higher power does the rest.
Oh, I love that, Nancy. I'll take that. I will definitely take that. Okay. Anyone else? All right. I'm going to read just a small snippet from Paul Case's Book of Tokens on the Wheel of Fortune key. And it says, by the balancing of opposites with exactitude unfailing, I bring mastery of all conditions to him who seeketh faithfully to do my will. Such a one will master days and seas and times, because through him my rulership of everything shall find free outlet. The Hebrew letter associated with this key is the letter Kaf, K-A-P-H, Kaf, and it means grasping hand. Whom does a wonderful job here of showing and reminding us. And if you make your hand into a fist and kind of turn it, you can see the pattern. You can see the little curvature of the Kaf, the grasping hand. Okay. So what's grasped here? We're not grasping like desiring and wanting, that kind of grasping. What's being grasped is the realization of the one self behind appearances. And this is a state of pure knowing. One way we're doing this in this course is waking up within our dreams. Again, our dreams are the most subtle level in comparison to what we call this world or this level. This world that we're working to get off or out of is in the East called Samsara or Maya of the East. And Samsara, what it means is the cycle of death and rebirth, which is what Michael was speaking to just a while ago to the key. And it's this cycle of death and rebirth to which our souls are bound to the material world. And this is the face on the cube that we're aiming to overcome, or as Margot likes to say, get off the Western face of the cube. As Mariah likes to say. And to be more specific, our task here is to evolve our consciousness and our being and to free our consciousness. You know, those figures in the subconscious mind down here, the self-conscious and subconscious, see on the world here, our goal is to free these guys. The chains are loose, but they're asleep. They're in a trance. This subconscious part of our being is entranced. And the self-conscious is just addicted to something, whatever it is, entranced also.
Did
But
anyone,
go ahead.
Did
No, go
anyone
ahead.
speak about free will because that keeps coming up for me with this,
Okay,
with the wheel.
right. When we're awake, we realize we have the freedom to take these chains off. But when we're asleep, it's kind of, I think Easy brought up one time we were discussing, or one of our peers here brought up how they train elephants when, to not run off. Elephants are so strong, but when they're babies, they'll put a big heavy chain around their foot and they'll tie them to some big massive thing where they just cannot get away. And then they get so used to it, they just stop trying. And when they stop trying, they just put a really loose little rope around their leg and just they're conditioned.
Mhm.
This state and the state of the world is the conditioned mind that only believes X, Y, and Z is possible and has no idea of what otherwise could be possible.
Yeah, we're
Which
like
is
so sure of our ideas that somebody might say to somebody, get off it, right? Get off it.
exactly. Yes. Yeah, just let it go, right? Just
Sorry, I
stop
interrupted
that.
you, Christopher.
No,
Sorry.
no, it's perfect. Stop the habitual unconscious conditioning. That's the key. But when we're asleep, we don't even realize we're in this habitual unconscious conditioning. We just think this is reality. This is how the world is. Okay. So again, our task is to free our consciousness from being bound to identifying with this level of reality as if it is the whole reality. It's not. It's the surface appearance. And even when we see something as magnificent as this, right? There are billions of galaxies and billions of stars in the billions of galaxies. And we're in this now. This is in us, we're in it. And this is like a tiny little sliver from the Webb scope. I think this particular picture came just from the center of our galaxy around Sagittarius. When we start to awaken in our dreams, it's much easier for us to see for ourselves and know for ourselves that there is far, far, far more to reality in the world than meets the eye, or that we already think we know. And this is humility for us. The way out is within. The way out is within. And as the Master said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. Okay. Now, back to this. In this key, I'd like you to note for yourselves in your meditations to try to go as deep into the center of this wheel as you can. The closer you bring your self-awareness back to its source, which is symbolized here in the center of this wheel, the still point. Sometimes this is called the moveless mover, the self. As Margot brought up the rings around here, these represent the four worlds or the levels of reality on the tree in Cabala, as expression goes from a point into the countless things. To the point that our consciousness is identified with forms, we're out here on the outside of the wheel, and we experience life and we feel like we are subject to the powers of the world and life. The more we can identify with the center and the very calm, witnessing awareness at the top of the wheel, the closer we get to the point of remembering ourself. And remember last week we were discussing the importance of practicing every day, observing ourselves and our environment from a different point of view, like a space or whatever, like from behind us. Like right now, kind of just see yourself sitting wherever you're sitting at the class computer from behind and witness your form there in front of you. Like Michael likes to talk about backing up into it, just kind of just drift back into that space and just see it in your knowing. Kind of feel that space for a little bit.
There's a real tactile way of doing that too.
Okay.
You know what it feels like when you're on a merry-go-round at the park.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're on the outer edge, you really feel like it wants to fling you off. But if you move to the center of it, it's a
Yes.
real unique feeling. You know, when you
Yeah.
stick your head right in the axis of the merry-go-round,
Yep.
it almost feels weightless there.
Right.
And so going within like that it has that feeling where you're facing outward and you just back up and back up and back up. And instead of looking to see where the center is, feel where the center is.
Yes.
And that's where you're in the still point or the immovable spot. That's where you are. That's the self.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've all had different experiences with this, but there's something about it that is markedly different. Meaning from other experiences. There's something about it that feels more solid than solid things. Is that your experience? Can you relate to what I'm saying there? Anyone? Okay.
What do you mean by more solid?
Michael's talking about feeling your way into the center. Okay. Focusing on the center of the key in your core practice will help you do this. But it's hard to put into words, but there's a marked feeling that,
I can tell you what it feels like for me if you want.
sure.
It's almost like being in a dark hallway and kind of feeling your way along one wall with your back to the wall, and you're trying to move down the hallway, but you can't see anything. And then all of a sudden there's an open door and you feel the spaciousness of the room behind you. So going to the center of that wheel, going all the way in like that, going within, something's got to open up. I know what you mean by solid, because
Yeah.
like doing that while skiing,
Yeah. Right.
nothing can knock you off your feet. I mean, you're right in the
Exactly.
still point.
Yes. It's so
Nothing's moving.
solid. It's
Yeah.
like pure light, but it's the most solid thing there is. It can't be moved.
Yeah.
It is the source. But to
Yeah, it's the
experience,
source, but you got to feel the energy moving through. That's how you
yes.
tell you're there. Just like, you know, on a merry-go-round, when you back up into that space, it kind of makes you lightheaded because all of a sudden there's no centrifugal force on your brain. So it's a feeling like that where something opens up. That's the idea of going in and then through and out the other side, you see.
Yes.
That's an expansive. So it's a contractive and expansive, but you've got to go through it into the next dimension.
Yep.
Yeah.
And one, we usually get this through meditation. When you let go and 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 let go enough, presence becomes palpable. That presence then starts to feel more solid in a way that really hard to articulate. It's just like vibrant energy. And that's the living intelligence. And within our own inner organisms, our own inner subtle bodies, this light, it's that is what is spoken of as the rock. The stone. If you intend to presence that, this is a really good key to do it with. And something that might help tactically is to kind of push your abdomen out to its extent where you feel it like all the way out. And then just feel that core. And it would be like sort of like if well, that's enough. Okay. Now, on this key, and try to make a practice every day of putting your awareness in a different space and observing what's occurring in your atmosphere, in your world, in your interactions with people, in the space you're in, all of it. And then from that perspective, interact with your environment. Like, bless it. Bless all the ones you see, including yourself, as if you are just another part, your person's another part of the scene. But the point is to do it every day so that you start to develop the skill of relocating your self-awareness. And it's not always tied to an identification with the body. Like the Sphinx up here. Understand this. Our awareness, the awareness by which we are aware of anything and everything, mundane, supernatural, doesn't matter. Our awareness is identical to the awareness that is the self. Not like, identical. Because self is all that is. And it's the power of the self that gives us our own self-awareness. Every moment we are awake and self-aware. Fortunately for us, even when we're not so much awake. All right. So, you know, we began this class talking about, are we in a dream? And it's a good question to stay with, to keep asking, to be for the self and life to show us, to wake us up more. Just keep asking, keep saying, is this a dream? Is this a dream? Because in this course, we're trying to wake up within our dreams at night or day if we sleep during the daytime. And through the day, asking ourselves, are we awake? Because I promise most all of us can be more awake than we are. Usually. It's a good goal, an aim. It's a target, like this center here of this wheel to aim for. We eventually pierce this veil where we remember that we are the life that we are experiencing in everything. One time I had this experience of just sharing with you, just a personal, I don't normally talk about this kind of stuff, but one time I had this experience where I was listening to a group of people speaking, And I wasn't too, involved in my head, but I was listening. And every time someone said I heard it. And then there was a way of listening with that you can hear the one eye speaking to itself through all of these people. And that is closer to the real self that we are. The Hindu master and teacher Subramanya stated in superconsciousness, which we know in tarot as the Fool, that he would see and experience himself as life and light flowing through all things. That was how he experienced himself at the superconscious level. And he recommended, I know Michael's brought this up before, I'm going to repeat it. I think it's a good practice. He recommended to have 2/3 of our awareness inward and 1/3 of our awareness out in what we call the outer world. Pretty good practice.
Yeah, that's just being aware of what you're feeling on the inside as you're dealing in the outside world.
Yeah, thank you for simplifying that.
Yeah.
Okay, lastly, remember, we see what we look at, not what we look for. Okay? We're not out here looking for something like stumbling through the dark or some intangible thing. This is just a technique, but this is why we hold the images in our awareness so long. So I'm going to repeat for everyone our core practices to hold this image in front of your physical vision every night, or at least the 6 nights. And then on the 7th night, Sunday night, rest. Do whatever you want to do. For 6 nights before you go to bed, hold this image in front of your physical vision and just allow it to permeate your vision. That's it. It's that simple. If you want to wonder about it, great. If you want to think about all the things, think about all the things. But give it your full attention visually. Let the images be absorbed into your retinal fields. Then, as you put it to the side to go to sleep, bring the image up in your inner knowing and inner vision to the degree you're able, and hold that key as if it was physically in front of you in your inner consciousness. If you can't visualize it, just think about every image in that key and where it's at, with the intention of making communion and contact with yourself. The intelligences here will take this, your subconscious will take this, and you will receive from self exactly what's needed for you on the path. This is the intelligence that rewards those who seek. By holding it in our vision, if you hold it long enough, Jason Lauderhan used to say, look until you see. That's it. That's the simplicity of it. But people don't teach us this. So hold the image inwardly until your inner vision illumines your inner space. For most of us, this starts to become more tangible through our dreams, because these are very vast and great intelligences that will use this pattern to then as an interface with our own consciousness, and then we bring heaven and earth together within us. The reconciliation. Again, look until you see, knock, and continue to knock on those inner doors until They open. That's the whole purpose of the core practice. If you do this with persistence, you will be rewarded. Because all those wonderful, great beings that help us all on the spiritual path, they see what we do in our practices. And they see when we have a sincere practice. It shows up. And to the degree that we persist, we receive assistance. And through this, we learn to trust more and more in our own self and those that help us. So this week in your core practice, I'm going to recommend focusing on this very center of this wheel, like Michael's talking about, going straight to the center of the merry-go-round. Don't intellectualize this. On the tree, this connects the sphere of mercy or hesed to the sphere of Netzach or victory, which is Venus, the emotional body, right? The sphere of love. Feel your way into this, into the center, but do the core practice with the visualizations. And make it your intention to wake up in your dreams and to commune with your true self. You guys are so awesome. Thank you all for your participation. This concludes our outer class on the Wheel of Fortune, Lucid Dreaming, and the Cube of Space. Floor is now open. Any questions or comments?